I'll give you guys a couple minutes to file in, and I see a lot of you connecting to audio and video. So for those of you who have been here before, you guys know what we do. For those of you that don't, if you can find the chat box, and if you can go ahead and let us know where you are calling in from. I'm sure you're from all over the world right now, or the country. And let us know what number event this is for you. If it's your first or your 50th, happy to have you here. And then also, if you can jot down if you have ever been to Mexico City before. Mexico City, that'll be just a great way for us to get to know each other. So go ahead and use that chat box. My name is Laura. I am one of the San Diego chapter leaders and one of the TNN virtual event hosts. I have lost track on how many events I've been to, over 100 for sure. And I have been to Mexico. I have flown through Mexico City just as a layover, but I have not gone outside of the airport. So I'm so excited for this chat today to learn more about it. So before we begin with our lovely presenter, I'm going to quickly share my screen and talk to you all about a little bit about the Nomadic Network. So for those of you that are new, the Nomadic Network is a global community of like-minded travel enthusiasts who have come together to learn and inspire each other to travel better, cheaper, and longer. So we launched this at the end of 2019 with the hopes of having all these in-person meetups around the world. We had a couple of them, as you can see from the photos there, and then the pandemic hit, so we pivoted into virtual events, which actually has been amazing because now we're all able to offer a couple of different types. So we have 3 different types right now we're offering. The first one are these travel presentation style events, such as the one today where we invite a speaker on to share with you about a particular subject matter that they're an expert on. And then we have regional events that are more focused just in your own community. It's a great way for you to meet those in your own communities around the world. And while we started off those in person, then we moved to virtual. Now we are back to having a mix of virtual and in person. So for all those events, you can check those out on our calendar. We have them scheduled for the next few months, and I'll share a little bit more about that as well at the end of the call. And then we have these monthly book clubs where we invite a speaker to come and share with you about their book. And these are fun because you're able to unmute, you get to speak to the author directly. It's just a great way to get up close and personal with maybe your favorite author on a book you've read before. A couple things to keep in mind. If you are comfortable having your camera on, do so. I see a couple of you with them on. That's wonderful. Makes it fun for all of us. So thank you. I will keep everyone muted though, just so we can hear our speaker. But use that chat box. I know you all know how to do that. This is a great way where you can connect and share any of your experiences or tips. And this is where you will ask your questions. So as soon as you think of your question, you can just type the word question first. That way I can keep track and I'll make sure we get those all answered for you at the end of the session. So Preethi here, this is her 3rd time, so we are so happy to have her here joining us again. She does this out of the kindness of her heart, giving us her time and her insight and wisdom and knowledge. So we are so grateful to having her here again. And we are here to learn, satiate your wanderlust, and have fun. So this should be a fun conversation. Get us all in the Mexico mood. For those of you that aren't familiar, we do have a membership network called the Nomadic Mat Plus. So all of our events, such as this one, are being recorded, and you have access to replays of that. Tons of other perks, and I'll share a little bit more about that. But if you're interested, you can head on over to that link. And hopefully you guys are all following us, but if not, go ahead and follow us on Instagram at the.nomadic.network, and we share all of our events there and a lot more. So head on over there. And with that, I am so excited to introduce our speaker for today. So Preethi is the founder of Eager Traveler. She is an adventure travel photographer, speaker, and writer. And her mission is to inspire people, including ethnic minorities, to explore the outdoors. So today she is going to be taking us on an exploration of Mexico City and beyond. So welcome, Preethi. I'll let you take it over from here.
Thanks, Laura. Thanks for having me. I'm so excited to be here, everybody, to talk through Mexico City and Oaxaca. I'm really excited to share because I honestly get a lot of questions about this. I feel like a lot of people are thinking of going or have been. I see that there are some people who lived in Mexico City, who've been to Mexico City. So please jump in. I'd love to hear your perspectives as well. And a lot of people seem to be going to Mexico City and Oaxaca. So that's super cool, especially for Day of the Dead. I've been dying to do that myself. But let me go ahead and share and see if I can do this correctly, because I'm in between, kind of like using two computer screens, and it's a little weird. So bear with me okay, can everyone see my screen okay? Hey, it worked. Okay, now for how to move this. Do I move this? Okay, there you go. All right, so just a little background about me. Founded The Eager Traveler. It's my blog, as well as I share my visual stories on Instagram. I love photography. I use the Sony A7R III, and I love taking photographs. And I enjoy writing, and I've spoken at a couple of panels last year and this year. So it's been a great journey, and I really enjoy sharing my stories. A lot of it since the pandemic has been focused on the outdoors. And so really been, focused on a lot of hiking and backpacking and exploring our own country here in the US. It's such a beautiful place, and just really enjoy encouraging other people to get outdoors. Lots of first timers out there. But I want to talk to you also about the outdoors in Mexico. Not a lot of people know about that. So let's just dive in. So I've kind of structured this in terms of 30 essential travel tips mainly. And then we'll talk about some of the, general travel tips, and then what to actually see in Mexico City, and also talk about some destinations outside of Mexico City. My favorite being Oaxaca, which was my first time this year going to Oaxaca. I've heard so much about it. And so it was really exciting to finally visit. But first, I want to kind of talk about some of the requirements. So Mexico, they've been really relaxed with their requirements, and basically you don't need a COVID test, you don't need proof of vaccination to enter for Mexico City. You don't need to quarantine upon entering Mexico City. But what I noticed was interesting is that masks are worn by almost everybody, and they're worn everywhere. So like museums, restaurants, businesses, they're all enforcing wearing masks, other than bars and clubs, of course. And anywhere you go, you'll be asked to sanitize your hands. So when you enter like museums, sometimes they'll physically just spray you with sanitizer in your front, and they'll make you turn around and spray your back. And sometimes you'll be asked to submit to a temperature check. So at the airports, they have like this little temperature taking machine, and you just have to kind of stick your forehead into that, and it'll take your temperature, and then they'll let you pass through security. So it's just really interesting seeing some of the way that, people are responding to this in terms of wearing masks, in terms of the sanitization and how it's being enforced. I found that very interesting in Mexico City. I don't know, those of you who have been there or who are there right now, what your thoughts are. Has anything changed? But I put a little bullet point here. So as of August 19th, in terms of the advisory rating, lots of different places within Mexico are rated, either level 1, level 2, level 3, level 4. So right now it's at level 3, which is at high risk, and level 4 is at very high risk. So they still recommend that you can travel to Mexico, but please, if you can be vaccinated, that's what they're recommending. But tip 2, I want to talk about the FMM tourist card. You will have to fill this out on the flight. They'll give you this form, and you'll have to fill this out and give it to your customs person at immigration. You got to make sure you fill out both the sections, the top and the bottom. I didn't realize I had to fill out like the bottom section. The top part gets retained by immigration authorities. The bottom part is what you will need to keep for the duration of your trip. If you lose it, it can be time consuming to replace, and you will need to pay some money to replace that. I would also recommend getting a local SIM card. So a lot of people, I realize, within Mexico City and also Oaxaca, particularly, English isn't always spoken. Obviously, if you know Spanish, you're fine. But I don't know Spanish. I just know a few words here and there. But I did end up using Google Translate quite a bit, especially when I took Ubers. A lot of the Uber drivers don't speak English, and I found Google Maps really handy as well to use. Also, a lot of tour operators in Mexico City and Oaxaca, they use WhatsApp to communicate, to make calls, and to kind of talk about when the tour is starting, what you need to bring, and things like that. So if your Spanish isn't fluent, WhatsApp is your best way to communicate. And for that, I think it's best to just get yourself a local SIM card so you're just really connected. And so after you pass immigration, once you arrive, you'll see a number of shops inside the airport just before you step outside the airport. So you can either step into an OXXO or you can step into a Mobo store. The one pictured here is the OXXO store. You can get a rechargeable Telcel prepaid SIM card. Again, the counter person will likely only speak Spanish. Or you can go into the Mobo store and get an AT&T SIM card. I got one for 30 days for $10 and it worked great. So you've got a couple of options there. I already talked about downloading WhatsApp and why it's important. A lot of people ask me about tap water in Mexico. I was told in Mexico City and Oaxaca, don't drink the tap water. And I think this is probably true of all of Mexico. But some homes, Airbnb, so I stayed in an Airbnb, and some of them do have filtration systems installed. So my Airbnb owner had that installed in our Airbnb, so it was safe to drink from the tap, but double check before you do that. I often get asked, do you use tap water to brush your teeth? I do. I've never had any problems, even international, wherever I've gone to India or Uzbekistan or any of those countries where it's not safe to drink the water. I've generally used tap water to brush my teeth and I've never had any problems. So I would also highly recommend, please use reusable water bottles because you won't be able to drink water from the tap at local restaurants. And so instead of buying those single-use plastic bottles, just bring your own. Also, you'll be wasting a lot of pesos each time you buy a plastic bottle. So that's something else to consider. Okay, I often get asked about using ice in your drinks when you go to a bar or restaurant. Again, I've never had any problems when they've brought out ice. I've never gotten sick from that, so I wouldn't worry about it. Street food, I get this asked a lot about whether or not it's safe to eat street food in Mexico City. Street food in Mexico City is incredible. It's honestly one of the ways to really experience the food culture in Mexico. Restaurants are incredible as well, but I would say look for street vendors where you kind of see crowds from. Typically, when you see a lot of people surrounding a food cart, you know, it means it's generally safe to eat from, but don't be afraid to try street food in Mexico City. I found it very hygienic. This was my third visit there, and I would highly recommend it. I would also say learn some Spanish phrases. I won't say that I had difficulty. I mean, I speak zero Spanish. I did have Google Translate again, but unlike the resort cities, like when you go to Puerto Vallarta or Cabo or all those places, I found that Mexico City and Oaxaca are not that touristy. So not everybody's going to be speaking English. And so some of these key phrases will go a long ways, you know, in terms of these are the common things, right? Like, can I have the check? Or how much is this? Or how are you? Or good morning. So try to learn as many key phrases as you can. And it can really help, especially when you're in markets where definitely they're not going to be speaking English. So tip 10, just a quick one on museums. Museums are mostly closed on Mondays. I did not realize that. So I had planned to go see a lot of things on Mondays, and who would have thought museums would be closed on Mondays? Saturday, Sundays, maybe. But actually in a lot of places, museums are closed on Monday. So that's something to keep in mind. If you're trying to see a folklorico dance show in Mexico City, it's one of the most popular dance performance shows in Mexico City, seen here in this building, which we will talk about in the next couple slides. Make sure to book online because these get sold way ahead at a time. And for some reason, because of the pandemic, they're only allocating a few days and few times for the show. So I don't want you to be disappointed like I was. I tried my best to see a folklorico dance show and I just could not get a ticket. And I couldn't find a time slot either for when I was there. Okay, let's talk about Airbnbs in Mexico City. Airbnbs are one of my favorite ways to honestly experience a city. I feel like I'm a resident. I try to get it in a place that's kind of residential, so I feel less touristy and I can kind of immerse myself a little bit in the surrounding areas. I don't know if I'm curious to see what some of you all like doing when you travel, you know, if it's Airbnb hotels or hostels even. But what I found was that if you book a last minute Airbnb trip here in Mexico City, it seems to work a little differently because I've never experienced this in the US. Make sure to read the reviews carefully. So I booked it maybe about 30 minutes before I arrived at the Airbnb, and I walked in and the bed sheets were all over the floor. There were cigarette butts everywhere. And when I pinged the owner, he was like, "Oh, it's not clean." He's like, "I have no idea." Let me see if I can send somebody. And then he was like, oh, it'll take me like maybe 4 or 5 hours. So what do you want to do? And I was like, oh, just cancel it. I'll find another Airbnb. I found another Airbnb, and it felt like it showed that I had the entire apartment, and I got there and there was an entire apartment. It's just that that entire apartment was being shared by multiple other people, and you had no way of knowing until you got there. So make sure to read the reviews carefully. This can honestly happen anywhere, even in the US. It just hasn't happened to me. So I felt like I should just add that in here as a tip. All right, so Ubers in Mexico City and Oaxaca. Can we use Ubers is another question that I get asked. 100%. Just know that some of the drivers will not speak English. So that's why I have Google Maps to make sure I know that my driver is going in the right direction. There's also this fear around Mexico City, Oaxaca, and a lot of people think it's dangerous to go. Even when I was planning this, people were like, oh my God, is it safe? How are you going to get around? So it when I go to Mexico City, I'm staying sort of in the more populated areas, right? So if you're staying in the heart of Mexico City, which we'll talk about in a bit, or you're staying in some of the neighborhoods, the popular neighborhoods like Polanco and Roma and Condesa and all those areas, and Juarez, those are all places that are populated. They're like the residential, plus they have lots of bars and restaurants, and they're all generally safe. You want to follow these rules that you would anywhere internationally. Like you want to be aware, you want to be aware of pickpockets. You don't want, Mexico City is not and Oaxaca, they're not places where you flash things. If you're wealthy and you want to sport like a beautiful watch and your most favorite diamond earrings, those are not the places that you would walk around the street sporting that. But this is common sense for any big, if you're going to Barcelona, for example, I would advise the same thing. So, in terms of going outside of Mexico City, again, I went to Oaxaca, so we'll talk about that a little bit, but generally it's advisable not to do, road trips into deserted areas within the country itself. You want to maybe look at more other ways of transportation, but Mexico City, Oaxaca, I would 100% recommend it. I think it's 100% safe. Again, this is my third visit. No problems using Ubers. You can also use share taxis in Oaxaca because there are no Ubers in Oaxaca. Nobody will speak English in those share taxis, and you'll be sharing it with a bunch of other local people. I used Google Maps. I used my Google Translate. I had no problems. Best to, however, stay in the historic center and walk around. If you want to go outside, especially in Oaxaca, I would hire a car and an English-speaking driver from a reputed company to take you outside Oaxaca Historical Center, which we'll talk about as well. Taking photos, not everybody might have thought about this, but when in Mexico City and even in Oaxaca, when you're in these markets, be careful about taking photos because it's like in the US, we're so used to just lifting our phone and just clicking whatever we want, right? We have this freedom here to do so many things in the US, and it's not like that everywhere you travel. And that's one thing to keep in mind. I haven't traveled internationally in a while. This is my first trip in a really long time since the pandemic, and sometimes I forget, and I've forgotten some of these things, that I can't just shove a camera up there and take a photo just because I think I'm capturing something cool and amazing. These are people who are not used to it. They don't like it, and they will get mad. So if you want to take a picture of a specific person in a market, ask permission to do so. Sometimes they'll come after you and make you delete the photo, because it actually happened to me. I thought I was taking a harmless photo of a woman holding a chicken in the market, but she was bent on selling the chicken and she was stressed out. She's trying to make money, and here I am trying to take a photo because I thought it was something to capture that represented the area and the environment, the market, the culture. And then she just came after me and she made me delete it. 100% understandable. So just a tip there. Tipping, speaking of tip. Okay, so Mexico City, tipping is quite customary. You can tip in US dollars. Obviously, pesos is preferred. It's kind of like the US for restaurants. It's like anywhere from 10 to 15% of the bill. For tours and guides, tip 10 to 20% of the tour. Private tour, about 200 pesos per day. And then if you're on a multi-day group tour, maybe like 50 to 100 pesos a day. I just want to say, a lot of these countries, these economies have suffered during the pandemic. And for Americans traveling to Mexico, we're at an advantage with the currency. So I would say if you can afford it, tip generously. A lot of these folks are just trying to really just stay afloat, and they've suffered a lot. They have families to feed and so forth, and they don't get paid that much. So this is the guideline that I'm giving you, but I honestly tipped way more than this because it was just nothing for me to tip them more. It was so affordable. So I would highly recommend that. Um, all right, so with tip 15, I'd like to kind of segue into the heart of Mexico City. What do you see if you're going there? A lot of you are going there for the first time. So I've only covered the highlights here. There's just really a lot more you could see in Mexico City. I would start with the heart of Mexico City, which for me is the main square or Zocalo, just because it kind of gives you that orientation to the city, the culture, and there's a lot of things that could be happening here in Mexico City, which can be really interesting for you to see on your first visit. The building that you're looking at that's right in front, this building here, is actually a really long building that extends all the way to the side in this square, and it's called the National Palace. I would have loved to go in there and see the Diego Rivera's mural. It's like a masterpiece, and it's off a staircase landing, but it was closed for the pandemic. It probably is still closed, but if you're going there, might as well go to the palace and just see if it's open, because that's a mural that you don't want to miss. Diego Rivera is a Mexican artist, and he's actually a very well-renowned Mexican artist. Also was married to Frida Kahlo, who we'll talk about in a little bit. But a tip here is that you might have to leave your picture ID at the door. It's a government office, and they'll probably make you leave it. Don't be alarmed, because some people get panicked at that, but you'll get it back. Now, right next to this National Palace on the left is the Metropolitan Cathedral. So this cathedral is honestly one of my favorites. It's beautiful. The entrance is free. Also, pics are okay without flash, no video recordings, and somebody will be there to tell you all this in case you forget. But when you walk into this, on the left side, there's an organ room, which is home to two of the largest 18th century organs. And you just have to pay a few pesos to get in. I would totally recommend it. It was just gorgeous coming into this room and seeing these organs from the 18th century. Also, the cathedral itself is Latin America's largest and oldest cathedral. It's a mix of three different architectural styles. Okay, so it's got Renaissance, Baroque, and Neoclassical. And inside the cathedral is this 82-foot tall altar of the kings, which is the oldest example of the Mexican Baroque style, which, I mean, it's stunning when you walk in there. So I really enjoyed seeing this cathedral very much. Next to this cathedral, right behind, is the Templo Mayor. So you don't even have to step out of Mexico City to go see the ruins if you don't want to, if you don't have time, because right here you get a slice of, what used to be one of the main Aztec temples, and you can kind of see a lot of this it's in ruins. So there's a platform that you can walk around. It's a viewing platform, but I have a little tip for you. After you're done with this viewing platform, if you go across from this, and if you can just nav to the El Mayor restaurant, go all the way up to the rooftop. The entrance is kind of weird because it's through a bookstore and there's no sign, but when you nav to it, it'll kind of take you to that spot, and then there'll be like a bookstore. Go into the bookstore. There's an elevator on the right. Just hop into the elevator, go all the way to the top, and get a snack. This might be a good time for a break. Get a snack and a drink, but the rooftop views are gorgeous, and you'll get this entire view of Templo Mayor, and as well as Zocalo, the historic square. So it's a very beautiful, beautiful terrace, and I've been here twice. It's a little touristy, but during the pandemic, I actually went just maybe 2 months ago. It was dead. There were hardly any people in there, and I enjoyed it all to myself. So it was great. The temple was actually, what happened to the Aztec temple? It was destroyed by the Spanish, and the ruins were actually buried and forgotten, and they were excavated only recently in the 70s. The next thing I would say to see Mexico City, don't miss this. It's right next to the cathedral. On the other side is the post office. You're probably wondering why I'm asking you to go to a post office. It's honestly a functional post office too. So just in case you wanted to mail out a postcard to anybody, perfect excuse, but it's also stunning, guys. It's beautiful. And there's like, if you go to the post office, let's say you mail your postcard and then walk to the left, and you'll come into this structure. It's part of the post office itself. Opens at 8 a.m. Be the first to enter so you could avoid the crowds and you can take photos to your heart's content, but it's just gorgeous in terms of architecture. And honestly, I've never seen a post office like this. I doubt I ever will, right? So it's pretty cool to visit. It is, like I said, a fully functioning post office, and it was designed and brought to life by both a Mexican engineer and then an Italian architect. That Italian architect was the same one who worked on the Palacio de Bellas Artes, which we'll look at next. So you can't come to Mexico City and not come to the beautiful Palacio de Bellas Artes. It's a really interesting, it's a beautiful building, first of all, and also it's kind of like a place for performance arts, and the admission is 70 pesos, and you can walk in. If you're not seeing a performance in here, like the folklorico that I talked about, the folklorico dance performance, you can go in there just to see the murals on the second floor. And of course, Diego Rivera has some incredible murals on the second floor, along with several other artists. I found this interesting because when I walked in, this is one of the places where I was sanitized via a spray. They sprayed me front and back. I'm not going to go into the whys and the why nots, or the how efficient that is or not. I don't know. You just kind of just go with the flow. But I just thought it was very interesting. No other place have I been sprayed like that everywhere. So you just go with it, and then go to the counter, pay your 70 pesos, and then you can wander around this building. It's beautiful. A little tip here: if you go on Sundays, it's free, but it might also be crowded. Although right now with the pandemic, perhaps not so much, which is the beauty of visiting these places right now. So the Palacio de Bellas Artes, like I said, it's a cultural center, right? So you've got music, dance, theater, they have painting exhibitions, photography exhibitions, and Diego Rivera's famous Man Controller of the Universe mural is here. So if you're not able to get into the Palacio, the National Palace, come over here and check out the Controller of the Universe mural. I just put this on a wider scale, but it's very interesting what he depicts over here. And there's a bunch of other murals too that are here from other artists, and also have very interesting messages around Mexican history, as well as culture. So I would say this is a great place to come and visit. Finally, a little tip here: if you want great views of Mexico City, I would say go to the top of the Latino Americana building. Don't stop at the 37th floor. That's where the elevator will stop you at, and that's where they'll send you. But continue on to the 42nd floor. And don't stop there. You have to climb 2 more floors up to see the views from the outside viewing platform. So you can stop at the 37th and the 42nd. Those are just the viewing platforms from inside. So if you have a fear of heights and you don't want to go out into the outside viewing platform, that's fine. But the outside viewing platform has grills everywhere, so it's pretty safe. But you'll get some fantastic views. And another tip: on your way down, stop by the cafe on the 9th floor, and you get a little close-up views of the Palacio de Bellas Artes. So you get aerial views of that. And for a more direct view of the Palacio de Bellas Artes and the park next door, go to the Sears building, stop by the coffee shop on the 8th floor. So I'm giving you guys excuses to go stop at all these cafes and, grab a snack. And I'll tell you this, cafe on the 9th floor at the Latino Americano, I was solo tripping here. It was amazing to just sit there by myself, have a cup of coffee or tea and have a little pastry and just watch people walking by and enjoy this view. And I can't recommend it enough. Try to take as many breaks and go to all these rooftops and hang out. It's not that crowded, and it's just a fantastic way to get these aerial perspectives and look at how green Mexico City actually is, because you wouldn't have realized. This view is again from the top, and it's of the historic square that we just talked about. So if you look at this building right in front of you, that long building is the National Palace that I was talking about, where Diego Rivera has that mural in there, which I couldn't see, but I hope you can. And then on the left here is that Metropolitan Cathedral, which is actually sinking. It's a very interesting fact as well. So go see it. But this is basically the heart of the square over here. And you've got the Templo Mayor ruins back there. So you can kind of get a very cool layout. You also get a lot of performances here. You get a lot of local dancers will be giving performances throughout the day. So if you're lucky, you might even be able to catch a traditional dance performance here. So that's kind of an aerial perspective. So day 2, we covered day 1, what it is that you could do. Definitely the Zocalo is what I'm focusing on for day 1. And Day two, I would say, if you can, and if you have time, if you have 3 days in Mexico City, so day two, you might want to take a day trip out to the largest pre-Columbian site that has so far been excavated in Mesoamerica. It is also a UNESCO site. And the things to see there are the pyramids, so the moon pyramids, the citadel, and then that largest pyramid with 366 sculptures. There's no way that I'm going to try to pronounce that word right now and butcher it, so I will save us all that. But a tip here is to get a head start on the crowds. Take an early morning tour. So if you go on Viator, I found that it was kind of hard to book some of these things online because there were websites were having glitches. Like even the Frida Kahlo website had a glitch and I couldn't book my tickets for that museum. I went on Viator and I got my tickets there. So it was pretty effortless. But get an early morning pyramids tour with like a private archaeologist and you'll be able to climb the sun and the moon pyramids before the heat. Not a lot of people know that. So you don't want to be climbing the stuff in the heat. It's brutal. So that's something cool to do on your day two, and that's kind of pretty much half a day, most of the day actually. Day three is where I would recommend you go see the Frida Kahlo Museum. Museum of Anthropology is fantastic for those of you who like that. And then there's the Chapultepec Castle, which also I would highly recommend. And then if you have any energy left in these 3 days in the evenings, and you're wondering what to do in the evenings, I spent all my time exploring the neighborhoods of Condesa, Roma, Polanco, and Juarez. These are the 4 neighborhoods that I had time to explore. And they have beautiful restaurants and cafes and lush, greenery lined streets. And it's just wonderful to walk around, beautiful boutiques. And it just gives you a really different perspective of what you might have thought Mexico City could be like, which is why a lot of people love Mexico City. A lot of people are moving to Mexico City because it's very livable. When you go to these 4 neighborhoods, you'll see what I mean by that. It's very livable. Tip 22, get your tickets ahead of time for the Frida Kahlo Museum. The website might be glitchy because it was for me. Get your tickets on Viator. And Frida Kahlo Museum is something that I've been trying to see for my last 2 visits and I couldn't. And I finally got to see it this time and I actually really loved it. I am not really that much of a museum person. There are certain key museums, however, that I do want to see. Frida Kahlo, the reason I would recommend this museum, even if you don't know who she is, you have no clue about her, it's really interesting because she's a big part of, Mexican culture and history. And this place will give you a greater understanding of her and her world. And she was also a really inspirational woman. And you'll kind of see the impact that her medical conditions had on her artwork. You'll gain a greater understanding also of her political ideas, her love for Mexico, how all this impacted her art, in spite of everything that she went through. She was a survivor, right? And she was also married to Diego Rivera, by the way, the other great Mexican artist that I talked about earlier. So I think a lot of, visiting a destination is about learning as much as possible for me about the culture, about the foods, about the history, and that's what brings it all together for me. So this is a place, if you're like that and if you enjoy that kind of travel, I would say this is something that you must see, because even though I didn't have much clue about Frida Kahlo before that, I just kind of knew her as this figure from Mexico. This really put it into perspective for me, and I have a greater admiration for her than I ever did before. So, okay, Chapultepec Castle. Why am I recommending this? I would not normally recommend this Chapultepec Castle. I didn't even know what it was until I went this trip. I want to show you this video. So basically, it's located in the heart of Mexico City, all right? It's a historic site. It's an actual castle. The fortress was home to Mexican leaders. It played a really important role in the Mexican-American War. And then there's a museum which has like exhibition halls that you can go see. So basically, this is a phenomenal place to see the history of the country from the conquest of the Mexican Revolution. It's also a really beautiful place. So you have to walk about a mile or so in to these beautiful lush gardens from where the Uber driver dropped me, because it wasn't walking distance from me from my Airbnb, so I took an Uber. From where he dropped me, I had a leisurely stroll all the way in through till I got to the actual castle. It's like about a mile or 2, in fact, almost. And it was stunning. I saw a part of Mexico City that I did not know existed. I didn't even know it was. I was like, this is Mexico City. Are you kidding me? I did not. It was crazy, which is why I would recommend you go see this place. It's kind of like, it's in the middle of the city. There's like this urban jungle, if you will. It's like these gardens and a castle in there. So also it's important because you actually get to understand a little bit about the Mexican history, which I think is important. So, oh, the video I want to show you guys. So let's hope it plays because sometimes it might not, but this is just to give you an idea of the castle and the surrounding views that you can get from there. So you can get a view of also downtown Mexico. You see all the beautiful lush gardens. You'll actually be walking through that to get all the way up to this castle, which is super cool. Okay, so I think the next photo is actually of the castle itself. And you can go in and you can see the exhibition halls and you go around the castle and you can see other viewpoints and you can spend almost half the morning here. So definitely do Chapultepec. All right, so as part of, any destination is food. I'm a huge foodie. So I'm always looking for where to go and eat the best foods in Mexico City. And this time I finally figured out where can I get the best tacos in Mexico City. Guys, the best Mexican food for me is in Mexico City. It's not in California. I'm from California. I'm from San Francisco. And a lot of people say California has great Mexican food. It probably does parts of California. And people always said San Francisco has all these amazing Mexican foods. No, it doesn't. Sorry, other San Franciscans. I'm not going to say that anymore. It doesn't have great Mexican food. Go to Mexico City. It has fantastic food. The best place for tacos, in my opinion, and some of you who are living there, who have lived there, who have visited way more than I have, might have other recommendations. Please drop them in your chat box. But for me, El Tizoncito, which is the second option here, is kind of known as the father of Al Pastor taco, and it's where it was invented supposedly. A lot of articles on this, a lot of like travel videos done on this one. El Tizoncito is great. You have the option to dine in or take out, just like the other two that I've listed. It's about 20 pesos for a taco. El Khalifa, El Khalifa was my favorite. And then on this trip, I put it way at the bottom because it's all right. If you're like in a bind and it's like 1 a.m. in the morning and you're dying to eat tacos, come on outside your Airbnb. You can go to any El Khalifa. They'll be open. It's good. But in my opinion, Orinico was the best. They also have all kinds of tacos. Al pastor is the best if you eat pork. I'm not that much of a pork person, but when in Rome, and I did love the Al pastor, so that's pretty much what I ate all the time. But they do have vegetarian tacos. They have vegan tacos. Those of you who are vegan or vegetarian, oh my God, the vegan tacos in Mexico City are amazing. Who would have thought? And I know those of you who are like avid meat eaters are probably like rolling your eyes right now and saying, what the hell is she talking about? But guys, the vegan tacos were so good. I would just say that it was really tasty. So that's just an option. Okay, tip 23, don't avoid the salsas. People are often scared, like, oh, I don't know if I should have the salsa. Should I have the water? Should I have this? Should I have that? Guys, salsas are what makes these tacos too. Like you gotta have all these toppings. And in the US, sometimes they give you that salsa with like the chopped tomatoes and the onions and all that. And sometimes you'll see other options when you go to authentic Mexican restaurants in the US. They're great. But the salsas in Mexico City, they're another level. I mean, come on, you're at the heart of where this food is from. So what do you expect? So you have to try the different toppings. And that's what like really brings the flavors together in a taco. So please try the salsa. You're not going to get sick. Okay, so that's kind of my spiel on Mexico City and what I saw roughly. I've kind of left out a lot of the boutiques and the restaurants. You can Google those. There's lots of blogs on there on the top restaurants to go eat at in Mexico City that made the list. Pujol is one of them. Everybody talks about it, but there's lots of other ones outside of Pujol that I would also highly recommend. But if you're looking for a place outside of Mexico City to visit for a few days, I would say Oaxaca is probably my favorite. I would almost argue Oaxaca is probably where you'll get to the heart of Mexico, if I could say that at the risk of being yelled at. But I would love to hear other comments and opinions and perspectives on this, of course. But okay, so, or I should rather say a part of Mexico. It's a different part of Mexico. You get to see different customs and different cultures in this part of Mexico. Let me phrase it that way. Okay, what do you need to know about Oaxaca? Tip number 24. Guys, this is where, I would say traveling during COVID, the pandemic gets a little dicey, right? and it could also be a function of not knowing the language. So it's a combination of things, I would say. So you check in for your flight to Oaxaca. I checked in and I got to the airport and I was told that, oh, you don't have a flight going out today. And I was like, oh, what do you mean by that? They're like, oh, your flight is tomorrow at 1 o'clock. They just canceled it. When I talked to Viva Aerobus, which is who I was flying with, they did not understand. I mean, they spoke English behind the counter, but none of them could understand what was going on. I just wanted to know, why did you cancel the flight and not send me a notification? Because I had to drive 2 hours in traffic in Mexico City, which is horrendous, in the rain to get here. And I don't have an Airbnb tonight. So why did you cancel it and not send me a notification? And they just didn't have an answer. They just didn't know. They couldn't tell me. Okay, go with the flow. When this is the biggest lesson, again, to remember, which I forgot because I haven't traveled internationally in a while, right? When you travel, things are not going to be like they are at home. Often Americans get this bad reputation for when we go outside, we want everything to be the way it is in America. And it's not. That's the beauty of going to another destination. So you embrace it and you go with the flow. Okay, they canceled your flight. It's for tomorrow. Great. Get an Uber, go back. On the way, I looked up, this is why you need connection, self-connection. I looked up Airbnbs, booked an Airbnb and went to an Airbnb. Or you could go to a hotel, easier, right? So it's not that bad. When I finally came back the next day, I went to the Viva Aerobus counter to get the boarding pass. And I went to security for baggage weight check. The baggage weight check was not done at the Aerobus counter. This is different from how we're used to, right? You have to go to security, go through security, where they'll check your baggage at the end of it. Now, before entering security people will tell you to fill out a health declaration form on your phone. That app, 8 out of 10 times, is not going to work and it's going to give you a little error. At this point, not many people around you are going to speak English. Don't panic. Just point your phone at somebody, just point it there. They'll see the error. They're going to point you to some other people in yellow, orange jackets. Go to them. They'll see that you're getting an error. They will ask you to do a temperature check. There's a temperature check thing on the wall. You just shove your forehead in. Once you clear that, they'll let you go through security. Once you finish security and get to the gate is where they weigh your bags and make sure that you're okay. That's kind of the process that I had going to Oaxaca. It might change, it may not change, but there is this part where you have to fill out that health declaration form on your phone. So know that you could get an error. Don't panic, and please go early. This isn't like the US, you know what, I cut corners all the time because I have TSA pre and all this other stuff. I'll go there like 30 minutes before, breeze through. Please don't do that. It's so stressful. I thought we were gonna miss our flight. You don't speak the language, right? And don't get panicked and start getting frustrated at them. This is not their problem. You know, it's just something that you need to do, and just do it calmly and you'll be okay. And you'll get on the flight and everything will work out great. And that's what happened. So finally got to see Oaxaca, and I would say plan for 3 days. And day one, what to see. My favorite, if you haven't figured out by now, is to start at the historic Old Town. Also, what I would recommend is with a free walking tour. They do have free walking tours, and I would highly recommend the Oaxaca free walking tour. That's actually the company name, and they were great. And you may or may not want to tip them. I'm a tipping proponent, and I've explained why. So I would highly encourage, please tip them. And they're open 7 days a week, and the tour roughly take about 2.5 hours. They'll walk you around. They'll kind of give you like the layout of the land. So you kind of just start getting an idea of what Oaxaca is like. I would also highly recommend visiting the ethnobotanical garden. The guided tours for this garden in English are offered only Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Be ready for temperature checks, and face masks are mandatory. I would also say sign up for a food tour. You might want to try authentic Oaxaca street food tour by locals. It's on Viator, so you can just go book it there. But the reason I am a proponent for these walking tours, food tours, not because I just want to be with people, right? It's because, one, you get the lay of the land so that you're not fumbling around if you only have 3 days, right? 2, Oaxaca is kind of like the food center. It's like, I don't want to say food capital, but it's known for its food. So how do you know what foods to try then if somebody doesn't tell you and show you? And that's where I feel like food tours have been a make or break it for me in terms of, do I like it or not like it? Because I did the same thing in Vietnam where I went on a food tour. And I had foods that I would never have done on my own because I simply wouldn't even have known because of the language restrictions. Okay, what do you see in Oaxaca? So I already talked about going, is this a video? This is a video. I already talked about kind of walking around the downtown. This is just kind of the historical center to give you an idea. It might remind some of you of San Miguel de Allende, which I visited in 2019. It's a little similar to that in terms of the colorful streets and the cobblestone pathways. It's very charming. It's also a very political city, and by that I mean that a lot of the street art has very politically oriented messaging. And it's a very interesting way when you go on that walking tour and you kind of look at the street art. It's a very interesting way to kind of understand a little bit more about Oaxaca, where the people are coming from, what's going on with the government, with the politics. So definitely I would encourage you to do this. This is one example here where an artist has depicted kind of like the poor shouldering the rich who kind of hold the wealth and the power and the justice, and that, and all of this, and I'm only giving you a glimpse into what the street art is like, but all of this will paint you a bigger, more immersive picture of what's going on with the people of Oaxaca. What are the issues there? Why they are the way they are? What drives them? What inspires them? What are they struggling for? Which I think is very important to understand. These are just some scenes as you're passing and walking through the streets of Oaxaca. As you can see, very colorful. I'm sure some of you who have taken other trips outside of Mexico City to some of the other towns like Puebla and stuff might see something similar. But for me, it was very reminiscent of San Miguel de Allende in certain parts. There are mosquitoes, so just be aware, especially in this courtyard in the evening when you're taking your walk, you might come across mosquitoes. So just dress accordingly. So it's kind of day one, I would say, walk around the streets. Day two is where I rented a car and a private driver for the day. I used Scenic Tours. I found them on TripAdvisor, highly rated. I really loved the driver. My driver, Eric, he spoke flawless English and he was absolutely great. Really highly recommended. Here's what I would recommend that you see. These are the things, in my opinion, that shouldn't be missed. Mitla, the Mezcal Distillery, Teotitlán del Valle, and the Tlacolula Market. And I'll tell you why, and then you can decide. So Mitla, everybody would say, yeah, go to Mitla. It's like this big, archaeological ruins. I'm glad I went, but it was underwhelming for me. I think a lot of the areas in Mitla were closed. There were only 2 sections I could actually even see. Perhaps that's why I felt it was a little underwhelming. But a little tip here, as soon as you enter, make sure you pay your entrance fees because it's kind of, nobody's like asking for it. But when you walk in, go to the left, pay your fees at the booth. And you'll need to proactively find an English speaking guide who will be standing around the entrance. If you don't act fast enough, most of them just get taken really quickly, which is fine because after they finish the tour, they'll be happy to take you along. Or you can even join a tour if it's not a private one, like someone has paid for it. They'll let you join in on them and pay them a small fee. But the reason I say take a guide is because you'll understand the history a little bit more. Otherwise, you're just walking around a bunch of ruins. And then what's the point? Don't go. Or you could take a guidebook, which explains everything, which I used to do. I used to take Rick Steves' book to Europe all the time. And then I used to just read it to myself and then walk around and look at all the buildings. Perfectly fine to do that as well. So whichever you prefer. Sometimes I feel sleepy and it was really hot and I'm walking around and I just feel like nodding off to sleep. And sometimes a human explaining things to me is a lot better for me. So this time I chose to take a guide and I found it was really interesting to understand more about Mitla, how it was developed, how people lived here, what they used all these different areas for. So I would say if you have the day, if you're interested in ruins, Mitla will probably come up on the list quite a bit. It's also a very important religious center and a lot of tribes in Oaxaca. Oaxaca has 16 tribes, all right, 16 official tribes, let me say. One of them is the Zapotec. So this is a very important archaeological and religious site for the Zapotec tribe. So for that reason, it's very prominent and it comes up a lot as one of the places to see. Mezcal Distillery, look, different people have different thoughts on this, right? Some people will say it's super touristy, skip it. Yeah, I would not argue with that. But when you're going on a private tour like this with your driver in a car, you're probably going to be the only person. I was the only person at this particular mezcal place, which was called Mal de Amor. It was really nice, the Fabrica de Mezcal Mal de Amor. And I was interested in this because there's often this, misunderstanding between tequila and mezcal. Not that I'm a connoisseur of tequila or mezcal, but I'm just saying I wanted to understand it, and it's a big part of Mexico. It's a huge part of Mexico culture, and I wanted to understand more. So I said I'm going to go on this little tour, and they actually show you how they, pick the agave plant, how they put that in the how they bake the plant, what they do with it after in the distillery. I thought it was very fun and informative. If you do get to taste the mezcal while you're walking through this tour, and some of it is really strong. I have not still acquired a taste for mezcal, but you can also try the mezcal cream drink. It comes in different flavors. It's basically condensed milk and mezcal. All right, so let me just break it down. But ignore the part about the condensed milk if you don't like that, or if you feel like it's not healthy or whatever, and just try it. It is so good. Like when I found out it was condensed milk, I honestly cringed a little bit. I was like, I can't believe I'm drinking condensed milk. But you guys, it was just so tasty. It's also got alcohol in it, so it's great. I mean, you kind of get the best of both worlds. But that aside, if you're a mezcal fan, you should go to these distilleries. It's great. And you'll really understand the difference between mezcal and tequila. Also, another fun fact, in Mexico, tequila is not taken as shots like we do here. Mexico tequila is more sipped on. It's a drink to enjoy and savor. And here in the US, I think we've made tequila into like a party thing where we just take shots to get drunk, right? It's a little different in Mexico. So these are the nuances you'll understand, and gives you a much more better understanding of the destination, right? So mezcal versus tequila. Mezcal is cooked inside these earthen pits. They walk you around these earthen pits. They'll show you how, they're lined with these lava rocks, and they're filled with like wood and charcoal before they're distilled in clay pots. What is the difference between mezcal and tequila? You might be wondering. Well, mezcal can be produced from up to 50 species of the agave plant. That's why there's so many different, forms of mezcal. The drink, it can be smoky, there's all these different flavors. But tequila, which is a type of mezcal, is produced from only one species of the agave plant. So that is the main difference, all right? And tequila is produced by steaming agave inside industrial ovens before being distilled like 2 or 3 times inside copper pots versus the clay pots for mezcal. So little quick lesson for you all on mezcal versus tequila. This was the example of the crema de mezcal that I was talking about. They have so many different flavors. Hazelnut and strawberry were my absolute favorite. So good. You'll get them anywhere, at a bar or at a market. You'll get these. So, and they're safe to drink. Okay, the next thing I would recommend for your day trip is the Teotitlán del Valle. So first I saw this and I was like, what the heck is this? I don't know if I really want to do this, but this turned out to be one of the best parts of my trip to Oaxaca, because I went to visit the home of a weaver in the village of Teotitlán del Valle. It's a community of weavers. And when I go to these destinations, I love visiting these local artisans, because it helps me understand how they're trying to revive their traditions, how they're trying to keep it alive. And these are generations of these traditions of weaving has been passed down from generations from his family, from his grandfather. And it then kind of starts to round out your perspective of this place called Oaxaca, right? And you get a greater understanding for it. Honestly, this would be the best place for you to buy your souvenirs, whether it's a lot of people buy carpets for their home from here, or a shawl or a handbag for a gift versus the markets. Come to the weaver's home and buy directly from them, support them. But he let me try my hand at sort of weaving a little bit, but this is one process of the weaving, is kind of first taking the fiber and trying to get the fiber to lay in one direction. You guys, it's so hard. I'm going to show you this little video. After this, he's like, I can't give you a job here because you suck. But look at this. Like, you basically have to like brush that thing there's like the fiber that's lying in there, and you have to like move it up and down to get it to lay in one direction. It is so hard to pull that thing through. And he said this is what his wife does. This is his wife's job, and she does this, and it's incredible. I have like zero strength. I need to work out some more. So, but later he showed me some weaving, and I did a little better at that. And he said, all right, I might be able to give you a job here. So I kind of redeemed myself a little bit. Okay, so what is the big thing about this, right? So a lot of these artisans in Oaxaca, what they're doing is they're trying to use natural alternatives to toxic dyes. How freaking cool is that? Basically, they're producing colors from crushed insects and forest plants. plants. So here in this video, I'm going to show you how they're using this live insect from this cactus plant, right? Look what she's doing. She's taking, that's live insects, by the way, from this cactus plant. Now they're going to crush it to produce the color red. But when they add lemon juice, you're going to get the color orange. And when he adds a little bit of baking soda, that turns into purple. And now I did not add, I should have probably added the videos in here on how they're using this with the fiber. They take that and they put it into these buckets where they add all these ingredients that I just showed you together. And that's how they're dyeing it versus using the toxic dyes. Okay, so that is why I highly recommend you go to this village and you go to a weaver's home and spend some time trying to understand what they're doing, because this is honestly amazing stuff. Okay, so this was very cool, highly recommended. Next, Tlacolula. Okay, my favorite part of going to international destinations, or actually anywhere, is going to the local markets. Because I think local markets are where also, again, you get to see another slice of how that destination is, how local people are, right? So you can go to like the neighborhoods like Polanco and Condesa and get a slice of how people are living, how they go to bars, how they go to restaurants. Then you come to the markets and you get a slice of other kinds of people, how they're, selling their vegetables and their meat. And it gives you, again, shows you a different side of this destination. The biggest thing that you need to keep in mind is Tlacolula is the biggest market in Oaxaca. It's, I think, only on a Sunday. And wherever you go in Mexico City, Oaxaca, wear your backpack in front, beware of pickpockets. This goes for any destination. In this market, though, I want you guys to try the mamelas. It's a very local thing to Oaxaca, and it's at the very beginning of the market, almost on the left side. There'll be these ladies making them. It's basically toasted corn tortilla with different toppings. So you can either try pork lard, refried beans, cheese, potatoes, chorizo. I'm not a big meat eater, so all the stuff like pork lard, yeah, I do not want to ever have pork lard. But again, when you're in a destination and it's something to try, I'll try it. And it was great. You don't even taste the pork lard. It was just really well done. The whole tortilla was crispy, it was tasty, so good. Try the barbacoa lamb in the covered portion of the market. So you keep walking in the market. It's a long market. On the left side, there's going to be a church. And then you get into the covered portion. Keep going all the way to the end, or ask anybody, but ¿dónde está barbacoa? Or something like that, okay? So brush up on your Spanish, but they'll show you where to go. And then there's this entire food section in that covered area where people are cooking barbacoa lamb, which is, again, phenomenal here. And you have to have it in Mexico City or Oaxaca. So those are my recommendations. Have lots of mangoes, have lots of fruits. I had lots of mangoes here. They cut it open and they put chili on them. Don't be afraid to try these fruits, you guys. They are delicious. And I'm from India, so I like chili on everything. So it was fantastic. One of the oldest continuous markets in Oaxaca and across Mesoamerica is Tlacolula. I would highly recommend, and this is just a little illustration of how to wear your backpack in case you're wondering. I had camera equipment, camera gear. I love to take photographs, so all of that was in here. That's why I had it in front. So just an example, okay? And let's see, hiking. So my favorite thing, obviously the outdoors. And I thought, let's go see what Mexico has. Does Mexico even have anything? I don't know. I only know the beaches of Mexico. Okay, so Oaxaca, there's a lot of hiking, rock climbing, mountain biking for those of you interested. And I went to this incredible place called the Apuala Waterfalls. It's an amazing hike. The thing with Oaxaca is many of these hiking trails and the parks, unlike the US, they belong to the indigenous communities, okay? So I told you there were 16 official tribes, right? So you have to ask permission before hiking those trails. You can't just go on your own. And this is the thing that Oaxacans have a problem with. A lot of the expats coming in from America or Europe is like, we have this attitude where we could just get on a trail and just go, because we're used to that here, right? Although we have national parks and we have some regulations and stuff. But even Europeans, they say a lot of Germans come and then they just want to get on the trail and then they just want to hike. And they're like, yeah, I can do this. But what they're trying to tell us is come in here, respect our customs, respect our culture, respect our traditions. So please check in with the local people. The best way to do this is sign up with the local outfitters. Zapotrek is one of the biggest local outfitters. I loved Eric, the owner. He speaks good English. He's a local himself. I want to support the locals. There's a lot of foreign outfitters there too. They're also great. I just wanted to support the local people. So I went with Zapotrek. I talked to Eric a lot, he and his partner. Um, we both of them run this company together. They have a lot of rock climbing tours as well. And bring plenty of sunscreen if you're going to do this, a hat and a bug spray. Also, if you're coming from sea level, take into account hiking at an elevation. It wasn't that bad. I think we were at like 6,000 or 7,000 feet here. Um, be prepared for rough roads in certain patches. This was a road trip from outside of Oaxaca, probably like about an hour or 2 hours. So there are some rough roads, but just hold on tight and you'll be fine. It's an adventure, and it turned out to be a fantastic adventure. You will get stopped in places, and I don't know what they talked about. They talked about something and then they let you go. So, and as far as safety wise, that's why you want to go with the local outfitter. You want to go with somebody who understands the language, the customs, what's going on. And one of the places, Eric told me that they were just asking for money because the government isn't giving them money. And so there's all these like political things that you have to kind of weed through. And I would not recommend doing this on your own. Okay. So please go with go with a company if you're going to go outside of Oaxaca and do something like this. This is my 16-year-old guide, Marisol, who was taking us to see this cave. So the trekking companies will contract with these indigenous communities, and then some people from these communities will be the ones who actually kind of take you to the local places. So Marisol was taking us to see this cave. She's 16 years old, belongs to the Mixtecs tribe. Remember I told you there were like 16 official registered tribes, and one was the Zapotec. Eric is from the Zapotec tribe. Marisol is from the Mixtecs tribe, and they live here in this community. She's just 16 years old, and she just kind of breezed up to that cave. That's the cave up there to the top. While I was like huffing and puffing coming from sea level in San Francisco. So this is how she makes money. She just makes a couple pesos to take back to her family every day. She doesn't go to school because her school is like about 3 hours away, and she doesn't have transportation to go, and her parents don't have the money to send her. So I've been working with Eric to see how I can help. And there were a lot of people, when I posted this on my Instagram, a lot of people wanted to help and see if we could send her to school. So that's something that I'm working to see how we can help her. But lastly, my last tip on this presentation is coming back home to the US, right? So you're done with everything, coming back to the US. Now the US is requiring that you get a PCR COVID test. So I got this in Oaxaca because I only had about a day in Mexico City before I needed to board my flight. So I spent one night in Mexico City before I boarded my flight back home. So I have to get this test no more than 72 hours. I went to Oaxaca and I got my test in Oaxaca. They don't speak Spanish. So please have somebody with you so that you can understand everything that they're asking you. They'll ask you for your name for the test, your birth date, some identification and stuff like that. And then you take your test. It takes about 10 minutes. You get the results in 10 minutes, and then they'll print it out for you. And this is where it all kind of gets confusing after that. You come to Mexico City, you got to check your email before leaving for the airport, okay? When you're in Mexico City and you're going back home to the States. The airlines that you're flying back with will require you to complete a health form online and take a screenshot of the QR code. Great, take that screenshot. You have your COVID test, print it out. Great. If you're flying via Aeromexico, know that you might not be able to check in via your laptop. Do it through mobile and it works. I don't know why, but it worked on my phone. Even if you're checked in, if you're taking Uber, head to the airport at least 3 hours earlier. My Uber driver didn't speak English. He dropped me at a terminal, even though I kept saying Aeromexico, he dropped me at the wrong terminal. And I had to take the AirTran to get to the right terminal. I was shitting my pants by now because as usual, I cut it close and I'm like, oh, and that'll be fine. No, you're not going to be fine. It's not like the States. Okay. So just go 3 hours ahead of time. The AirTran took like 20 minutes to come, you guys. First I had to walk, then I had to wait 20 minutes to take the AirTran, then go to the right terminal. I got to the right terminal. I thought I'll just breeze through security, right? No, security guy stopped me, doesn't speak English. And he pointed to some desk where there was this woman wearing this orange jacket. And I'm like, what now? I go to the desk. She's like, you got to fill out a health form on your phone. And I'm like, no. And I showed her my QR, code scan. And I said, here, it's here. I did it already. And she's like, nope, this one. This is all in Spanish, by the way. So I'm like, what the heck is this health form? So then I had to fill out this health form about how I took the COVID test, how I'm negative, how this, how that. I had to take a screenshot of the resulting QR code. Then she let me go to security. I had to show that at security, got to the gate. If you have no check-in luggage, which I did not have check-in luggage, I did not want to check in. I think checking in is a nightmare, so I didn't want to check in anything. I was about to board the flight. Everything was smooth. I got to the gate. I'm sweating because I was stressed out. But I made it to my flight 30 minutes before takeoff. I got to the gate, and somehow miraculously everything was great, right? So I'm about to board. They pull me off the line because they see my passport, and then they're like, okay, let me see your COVID test results. Let me see the QR code. Not the one that I completed in the airport, the one that I completed at home when I was trying to check into my flight on Aeromexico. They wanted to see that. So the airport one was not valid for them. I don't know, but I had to show them that. Then I showed them my test results, and they asked me where I got it tested, why I went to Oaxaca, what I did in Oaxaca, all these questions. They asked me all these comprehensive questions, and I started sweating again because I'm like, oh my God, they're not going to let me board my flight to the States. What have I done wrong? I followed everything. But they're just routine questions. It's because you didn't check in your luggage. So there's no other way for them to check you until you're at the gate. That's when they go through this process. Okay, so that's what you got to keep in mind. Keep the 2 QR codes accessible on your phone. Don't be fumbling like me, like trying to go through all my photos to find that screenshot, because what they're asking you at the gate is different from what that lady in the airport before security asks you to do. You have to do everything, and it's all required at different times. So this is kind of the process of going to Mexico City, Oaxaca. It was stressful. Obviously, it was my first time traveling since the pandemic, and there are all these different rules. The rules are changing all the time. But I would once again say, don't expect things to be like they are at home in the States. Be patient, be calm. If you don't know the language, that's on you. Remember that. So don't get frustrated at them. Don't get frustrated at the attendants or anyone else. Just be calm, try to do the best you can. And the biggest advice I can give you is go early, so that way you can mitigate all of this and spend oodles of time walking from one terminal to the other, trying to flag down people, trying to translate things, trying to go to Google Translate and doing all that wonderful things stress-free. That's what I would recommend. That was my biggest takeaway flying during the pandemic. Was it worth it to go to Mexico City and Oaxaca now? Yes, because I escaped the crowds. It was amazing. And it was so good to kind of get out and dive into an international trip and experience a different culture. I think I really missed that. So that's what I would say. And if you have any questions, let me know. And I hope you've enjoyed these essential trips to Mexico City. And come say hi on my Instagram. I'm Eager Traveler without the R at the end. If you just want to see photos, you can come to the Eager Traveler on Instagram, and then my website. I have a lot of hiking trails and a lot of national parks and national forests and things like that happening right now. So, but yeah, thank you all, everybody. This was awesome. I hope this was helpful for anybody traveling to Mexico City.
Preethi, oh my goodness, this was amazing. Yes, and if I did drop your contact info, so everyone, you should go follow her because she is incredible with her stories, her reels, her insights. It's just amazing for Mexico and all across the world. So definitely you want to check her out. But Preethi, there are so many of us on the call that have not been. There's quite a few people who are planning to go. So I think you've been so inspirational. And oh my gosh, what amazing hidden tips and just secret places we can go. So it's been incredible. I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone that gets to go and put your tips into play. So it should be wonderful. All right, we do have a couple questions. I know we're just a little bit after the hour, so if anyone has to drop off, that's fine. You have her contact info. You can always connect with her that way. But I will run through some of these real quick. And thanks to those of you on the call, because I know a couple of you were able to answer some of them. So I appreciate that as well. So we have a question from Janet. So I know you went to Mexico City for 3 days. Do you think 7 days is too long? Or what's your thoughts around that?
No, I don't think it's too long. I think it's just it's that concept of slow travel, if you will, right? And then there's lots of things to really immerse yourself in. And I like to relax. I like to kind of just take breaks and sit in lots of cafes and people watch. I love doing that. And I think 7 days will give you that opportunity. Also, 7 days will give you the opportunity to take several day trips out of Mexico City, where you can go see the pyramids, you can go to Puebla, you can go, Puebla's outside Mexico City, Oaxaca. Anyway, you can Google that, but there's lots of great day trips to just even do outside of Mexico City. You can also go to Grutas, which is like this beautiful place where they have like these terraced not waterfalls, but it's like these calcium terrace fields of water, like pools of water that you can go swim in. It's about 4 hours or 3.5 hours, I think, from Mexico City. And you can maybe go there. People go there on a day trip all the time with like a tour, or you could go spend the night. So there's options. So I don't think 7 days is too much. I think it's a very, again, livable city. So I think you'll find that in the 7 days that you're going to just kind of ease into it comfortably and start kind of becoming familiar with places. And you'll kind of really develop a rapport in 7 days. I don't think it's too much at all.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, and it just depends on your travel style, but sounds like you can do it in 3 days, but if you want to see more and explore
Yeah,
elsewhere,
because
you can do it.
there's so much to see that I left out. There's so many different types of museums and different parks, and there's all kinds of things to really spend time on. And 3 days is honestly not that much. It's just to get, like, I've been to Mexico City before, and so that's why I only spent about 3 days this time. But I would highly say if you have 7 days, go for it.
Yeah, but I was going to say your itinerary for 3 days is perfect. So I think you guys showed us exactly what we can do, which is not too much, but we still get a good sense of the city. So it's perfect. All right. So Daryl had a question about transport. So did you use Ubers or taxis most of the time when you were exploring outside of downtown? Or did you take trains, buses, any public transport? And just what are your thoughts around that?
Yeah, I took Ubers when I was exploring outside of downtown, but I would highly recommend the metro. Their underground system is incredible, guys. The only reason I did not take it was because of the pandemic. I wanted to avoid any crowds as much as I could, and I didn't want to be in indoor places like a subway, for an extended amount of time. But given that almost everybody wears masks, it might be okay. And if you're not worried about that, you should totally take the subway. It's cheaper, it's faster. You don't have to worry about the communication issues. Sometimes with Uber too, like even if the pin drops here, they actually come across the street. And I actually asked a couple of people standing next to me at the bus stand, okay, like where's like donde está Uber? And then they'd be like, oh, it's actually there. And then I'd hurry up and cross the street, and it was fine, totally fine. But metro is actually my preferred way to travel.
Okay, perfect. So a couple people actually answered this, but I'm just going to ask you. So Jess is curious, where's the best place to change money? Would you recommend the airport, a bank, or did you bring pesos down with you?
I would not recommend the airport. You don't get a good rate. And so I would say do it outside of the bank. That's what I did. And you get the best bang for your buck there. So try to avoid the airport. I withdrew from an ATM first inside the airport. So I had some pesos with me. I was kind of debating, and I was like, oh, I could just probably go without pesos. I'm just going directly to my Airbnb. And then, my first time in a long time being international, and I just didn't want to take that chance. And I thought, let me withdraw some pesos. And then I went to the bank the next day, and then I exchanged everything.
Yeah, I think that's great. Just having enough on hand just in case you need it. Smart. All right. So Esther was curious about your flight price to Oaxaca, or I can never pronounce that correctly, or what you think are average prices for Mexico City there.
Oh, from Mexico City to Oaxaca?
Mm-hmm.
I think it depends. I think I got mine for $60 or $80. So it kind of just depends on how much gap you can give when you're getting your ticket. I got my ticket, I think, almost maybe 3 weeks before my trip. And I bet if you got it like 4 to 6 weeks, you could probably even get better deals, but it's not expensive at all. It's pretty cheap.
Okay, yeah, that sounds really reasonable. Okay,
yeah,
add that into your budget, but it's not too bad.
Yeah.
And then a couple questions from some folks on if you've traveled other places in Mexico. So Shannon is curious if you've ever been to Guadalajara, and also if you've ever been to, I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing this correctly, but Zipolite Beach.
Mm-hmm. I've not been to either places. I wanted to go to Guadalajara, but have not made it down there yet. And neither have I made it to the beach, but it sounds amazing.
Perfect. Okay, well, just another reason to go back, right?
Yes, for sure.
This is amazing. I think I answered everyone's questions. Again, if we didn't get to it today, you guys can connect with Preethi on her website or Instagram. You should have all those links. I've included them a couple times now. And, but wow, I mean, seriously, like I was telling everyone in the chat, I'm ready to go book a trip now to these places and go explore. So I always tend to go through the airport, but never get outside. So I think it's important to just, even if you're going through, maybe you can take 3 days and do a longer layover if you can't actually plan the trip. So awesome tips. You're so inspiring as always. So thank you so much for being here. And for everyone, Preethi, do you have anything that you'd like to add before I just share my screen real quick and close our call?
No, I just want to thank everybody for tuning in and letting me, blabber on and on and reminisce about my trip. And if you have any questions, just, hop on Instagram or my website and feel free to DM me, and I can give you additional tips if I haven't covered it here. So thanks, everybody.
Perfect. All right, you guys. So I am just going to share my screen one more time and I'm going to run through this real quick so you can get a sense of what we have coming up. But you can go ahead to our calendar of events right there, the nomadicnetwork.com/events. We have all of our events listed out through December. I believe we actually have a lot this month. So check it out. Next week, we have SEO for travel bloggers with Isabel on how to stand out on Google. And then we have Nomadic Matt himself coming to talk to us on the 8th about 6 steps to avoid analysis paralysis when travel planning. So those should be some fun ones. We've got virtual and in-person happy hours. Our next one is tonight for the DC area. So if you live in that area or you just want to join, feel free to log into that. But do check the calendar because we have a lot coming in person. We have one in, I'm from San Diego, so we have one in San Diego at the end of September. If any of you are in the neighborhood, come join. And then we have these monthly book clubs. So our next one is with Lola, and her book is In Every Mirror She's Black. That's on Wednesday, October 6th. So hopefully you can have a read and then come join us for that as well. And lastly, as I mentioned, we have this membership community called the Nomadic Net Plus group where we have all of these event replays that you can watch on your own time if you miss a part or miss it. We have monthly giveaways, an exclusive Facebook group. Nomadic Matt will share things he hasn't ever shared before with us. So just a great way for just a couple dollars a month to get all these extra access to things and perks. So check it out if you'd like at that link. And that's it, everyone. Thank you all so much for being here and for all your great questions. And Preethi, thank you for all of your insight and encouraging all of us and inspiring us to go on these trips to these wonderful destinations. So hopefully we'll see you all at another event real soon. Have a great day or night, everyone, and we'll see you later.